Sent to the future from the year 2000 by a glitch due to the Millennium Bug, I'm adapting to thrive in the peculiar conditions of the 2020s. Join me in a multimedia extravaganza as we surf the World Wide Web, catch up on 2 decades of video games and mess around with creative tools new and old. I'm Millennium Cyborg, welcome to the new millennium. Back to the PNG tuber for this development stream. So right away you can see we've got a dither effect going on here. That's one of the things I'm hopefully going to be porting over to inside my application instead of in OBS as it is right now. There we go, let's turn it off. Right, everything's looking good. So let's get inside the app. I'm still not 100%. I don't know what I caught. I'm not testing positive for the old COVID, but I have felt under the weather. I wanted to get a couple of streams in because I'm on break doing family holiday stuff next week, and oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope it hasn't hit you too badly, Barbadino, but good to see you here. Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I've over the past few years I've managed to avoid ever testing positive, but I've been hit by just a bunch of flus and colds. Am I bothered? I'm slightly bothered by the fact that my avatar is kind of, it's bouncing, but it's bouncing, you know, off. It's bouncing too high up, so you can see where it cuts off. How about this? I mean, Alright, I'll leave it like this for now. I'll have to think about how I want to structure the UI for those. Yeah, I'm bouncy with whatever I've got. Oh. So, this doesn't tie directly into what I did on my last development stream, but it's also part of cleaning up my existing stack of effects and so on. So let's see. Head to inside the studio. I've got a few effects that I've implemented inside the engine. Those being the depth of field effect. Oh, thank you for the resub. Oh, interesting. I'm not hearing the music there. Thank you for the resub. Much appreciated. I think I got a slight issue. My monitor setting in OBS must be wrong. I saw that after the latest Windows update, several people had problems with these settings. There we are. Yeah, whatever was in that update, it reset a bunch of audio devices for people. So we've got a few effects in here. We've got depth of field. We've got the game lighting. There's no input to that right now. And things like compositing in the game or cutting out the avatar are also sort of related. but they're not implemented in a very nice way, so there's no it's all one big, you know, bunch of code calling functions that do, oh, do depth of field now, do this now, do that now. I've been tidying up slowly, but it's still not ideal. I'm going to be following a tutorial part of the cat-like coding set of tutorials, and we'll see how far we get in terms of implementing a slightly cleaner Postfx stack. What is this track? So what I've done in terms of the music, I got a hold of a big set of video game music tracks. I've not been able to check all of them, but at least it's mostly instrumental stuff. Let's see. That's better. Right, there's quite a lot here. We'll see how far we get, especially since I'll be chatting, but if we look at the code right now, let's see. So right now, all of the post effects are implemented inside the main renderer as separate passes. So for example, depth of field. So we call setup depth of field pass. If it's enabled just at a certain point inside the main rendering. And so the idea is, instead of doing that, we'll have probably separate classes for different post effects, and we'll have an object inside the Unity editor we can use to configure what passes are active, and maybe go as far as, you know, being able to attach those to cameras, have post-process volumes, and all those sorts of features. But the main thing is to clean up a bit the mess we've got here. And I mean, I could start putting these out into classes without the tutorial, obviously, but I'm hoping that the way the tutorial's got it set up will make for a nice experience in the editor. I've got some other effects that I want to bring into the stack as well. So we've got, nope, that's the wrong thing. We've got this dither filter, right? You found a cool channel on YouTube that breaks down, explores, and fixes code in classic NES games. Interesting. Yeah, I quite like reading about some of that stuff, or watching videos about some of that stuff. I saw a very interesting video about the scrolling effects in, I think it was a Batman game for the Genesis. They was doing very fancy graphical effects using, you know, scrolling and palette tricks. So this is a dither effect filter. You can't see the sliders I've got in OBS for it, but what I can do is I can reduce the number of colors per channel to make it much crunchier. Hang on, that's the wrong thing. So right now it's at 16 colors per channel, and I can make it, well, that's very worrying, really punchy. There we go. It's not, I wonder if I should add a bias option as well. Because when it gets this low, it just thresholds most things away. So if I added a color correction before that filter, I could lift the brightness and get something more like this. With contrast and brightness a bit, but it's I guess it's a bit beyond the scope. But I'll give it a few more colors per channel. This is with 8 colors per channel. We can get a sort of a dithered look. It uses a fixed 4x4 dither matrix. It's just my favorite scale of dither. And well, so this is what I'd implemented so far, right? And then I did wonder about the whole Sega CD FMV look, where you get kind of 2 layers of oh, is there a website for that? That's very interesting. I wonder what it does. So, because let me show you what I've done. So I'll go back to, I think 16 colors per channel is reasonable here. So I'll turn off this effect. I was thinking about how could you cheaply make something look like bad FMV without actually having to compress it, right? Something that's cheap to do real time. What I came up with was breaking the image up into blocks of, say, 4x4, 8x8 pixels, and then within that block, really poorly compressed video. You're just going to end up with effectively a gradient across the block. And so by taking 4 samples inside a block of pixels and interpolating it across the entire block, I end up with this result. Now, I wonder what this looks like compressed over Twitch, because it just looks like bad video compression for the most part. But here all I'm doing is creating a gradient, and I've got a sort of bias factor for where in the block it samples. So on one side you get pure square pixels look, on the other side you get a very blurry look, and sort of the midpoint of that I think looks like a reasonable approximation of bad video compression. So if you layer that with the dither, you get something that to me looks pretty good as a as an FMV sort of look. So I'm going to bring up the my tracking. And I'm going to bring in the close-in camera because otherwise I don't have many pixels to work with. Here I am. Let's see. And then there was one more thing I thought enhances the effect. So to do that, what we're going to do is let's see. Actually going to copy the filter here. Paste it here, yeah. And I'm gonna cut out my avatar. And there we go, bring in the background. Hi Jay, welcome to the stream. Skeleton, welcome. So this is my approximation of FMV on Sega CD sort of look with it, you know, with like cheap shaders and no actual encoding steps. And then for an extra little bit of verisimilitude, I can lower the frame rate of my application, and now I look like a low frame rate FMV being composited on a dithered background. So both the dither and the bad FMV filter are things that I want to add to the Postfx stack in Unity. I can go as low as this for the frame rate. I've got options to go as low as this, but I think this setting is about right. So I'm so I'm doing 1 out of 4 frames being rendered. Color restrictions, yes, I'm each color channel is being limited to 16 color values right now, and then and that's with a dither. I can do other things, so I can disable dither on here. I can show you what just the sort of fake FMV filter does, which is kind of blocky gradients, and then I can limit the color values in that. That's too far. I mean, I can, yeah. So I can do this without a dither, just limited colors. It looks pretty bad. I detect as human. I am a human, just slightly enhanced. I'm a cyborg. So I'm going to go back to without all of the filters as we do some development work. Is looking good a goal? Well, I want to look crunchy in the right ways, in ways that are charming rather than worrying. All right. So I have too many options to play with now. All right. Let's go back to the tutorial and see what we're going to start with. These the cat-like coding tutorials are oh, well, you can't see the URL right now, but it's cat-like coding. If you just Google that, you'll find them, and they're really well put together tutorials that teach you about actual performance and how the graphics stack is working in Unity. And I probably should have been following them, you know, from the beginning to the end, instead of jumping in at random points like I am, but that's just how my brain works. So we're going to be creating some asset types. What was the file I was going to use this in? Postfx settings, and I think we want a yeah, I think it's better to create the folders in in Unity. Otherwise it'll complain about meta files and so on. I don't remember in exactly what condition it complains about its meta files, but am I gonna do this? Render pipeline, create folder, editor, C# script, Postfx. I know you can't see this right now, but we'll see it in a second. All right. My Postfx settings. So this is just going to tell Unity that this is something you can create as an asset. And probably does more than that, but I don't know about it. I hope I don't hit too long compilation. Like this reload script is, oh, you don't even see that window. The reload times for my project have been increasing, and I don't know if it's because I came to a more recent version of Unity recently, or something to do with my code, but it just spends a lot of time on reloading script assemblies. Wait, where did I put it? Oh, I see. It ends up in a different assembly. Okay. Right, so there's a few magic folder names that affect, among other things, how Unity recompiles. I think editor might be wrong here. Alright, let's move it. I'm just going to dump things in the same folder and not worry about it too much for right now. Alright, let's see. What do we put in the asset? So the assets are just things that are saved as part of the project. I think they're written as JSON or binary JSON format for the most part, if they're not a standard file format like a JPEG or whatever. And so the serializable fields will be things that end up saved in the asset. Okay, so we're adding something to our render pipeline asset. No. Some of these names are too long to fit on screen. Render pipeline asset. I don't have any of those other options in the constructor. So we've got the render pipeline settings and then the Postfx settings. I'm just going to copy them. I assume we're just going to copy them in. And store them. And then pass them into the renderer, okay? Good start. So this music playlist is the YouTube playlist of the Drum and Bass in Video Games Twitter account, which I then used YTDLP to rip to MP3s, and then ran a what's it called? Replay gain in Foobar Player. I ran replay gain over all of them to normalize the volume. I removed a few that had too much vocal in them, but this means that I can more easily route the audio and do whatever I want. And also I can have a now playing that just tells you the name of that was the name of the video originally, but you know, easier than trying to use the YouTube playlist directly. And because I'd spent a while trying to use playlists of stream safe drum and bass and so on, and too many of them had vocals, way too many of them had vocals, and I thought that going for video game soundtracks, most of them should be okay to play on stream, probably. Fingers crossed. Any that get content ID'd, I'll remove from the playlist. And I've got a few game soundtracks I want to add on, like Ghost Trick, which is an excellent soundtrack for debugging too. But now I've got, 3 or 4 days worth of music, most of which should be good for the stream. Okay, what next? Raise an empty one and assign it to the pipeline asset. There. Postfx settings. And assign it to the asset. Done. So we're going to have a class that holds all of the Postfx. Just scanning the members here. So this was called Postfx stack. Is going to have its own command buffer. So the command buffers are a way to send a bunch of commands to the GPU at once. It didn't load Visual Studio. Why is that? Was it not capturing it earlier? No, it's definitely been capturing it. Okay, it works now. Fine. Can't wait until the studio gets built into a secret volcano base. Something similar is in the works. Definitely. It's a lot of work to create a larger environment, but I'm hoping that by my 18-month milestone, right, that'll be in October, I'm hoping to have a more impressive environment to work with. And something that looks a bit different from what other VTubers have still. So not a gaming room, for instance, not a bedroom. What are we doing? I just copy pasted this. It looks fine, I think. We're just storing. Okay, we've got a setup. When do we call setup? Probably as part of the. This might, given the way the code works for other parts of the tutorial, it might be at the start of every render. Public property, is it active? Okay. At some point we'll have something more interesting than me copy pasting code from the tutorial, because I'll have to adapt it to my actual effects. But for now, public render method that renders the stack, applying an effect to the entire image. Yeah. Integer for a source, add a parameter, built-in target. Is a destination. Right. So in my case, I might need two handles. I'll make it with two handles for now, because I'm doing shenanigans with the render targets, and I don't fully understand the way that they're bound either. Hunter hunted for Windows 95. Hunter hunted. Game. Oh, I recognize this cover, this game cover. I'll check it out later. Keep a tab open and yeah, I've definitely seen that game cover before. Yeah, it was great when games just had the music as Redbook audio and you could just play them. Yeah, that sounds like my sort of thing. So the renderer, so the stack is just rarefying the, and then create instances of individual. Oh, I really need to clean up some of these things. The way I'm handling the shader constants as well, shader constant IDs, is just a mess. So what are we doing? Postfx stack here. Yep, set up in hold on in okay. Render initialization somewhere. I wonder what sort of setup. I'll put it here for now. And then we'll see. This is after I allocate some other buffers, before I allocate command buffers, but after the yeah, I'll leave it here until I've got a reason to move it. Alright, so this is where we start diverging from the tutorial, because the way that they use, the way they do this is different for me. My temporary buffer is always going to be allocated anyway. Oh, nice, a Vectrex. I've always wanted to have a proper go on one of those, and I think when I've had the opportunity to see them at, you know, a computing museum or whatever, they've never been in a working state. It's one of those things. I mean, obviously you can't get the effect of a CRT on a stream, but especially the vector displays are very hard to convey unless you're seeing them in person. So, right. Just gonna stick this here. And think about it for a moment. So let's take the depth of field pass as an example. The way I've got my own code structured, I can, so the blur pass, there's several iterations on some temporary buffers, which it allocates in line in the commander buffer and then releases. And so you can tell it, here's a render target, source and destination. In some cases it wants to know the size of those, which is also an interesting question. Does the Postfx stack need to know those? Oh wow, that's nice when someone's really taking good care of the hardware as well. Let me read ahead in the tutorial a bit, and then I can decide how to match this to the way my code works. And I'm not saying the way my code works necessarily makes more sense, but that's what I have right now. So force clearing. Gizmos. Well, this part seems worth doing even aside from everything else. So I read this part earlier. Apparently some of Unity's code wants to run before and some after all of the gizmos are drawn. No, correct that. Some of the code to render the in-editor gizmos or widgets or what have you wants to run before the effects pass and some after. Oh yeah, well hopefully the capacitor replacement goes well. I've replaced the capacitors on my NES, and that some of those needed a lot of desoldering. Like, it's quite tricky. I think I'm not yet. I think I should have used a lot of flux. was the real thing I should have done. Just like way more flux than you'd think you need. That would have probably helped. So we've got somewhere we've got an editor only. Here we go. Editor only partial class. So we're doing. No, hang on. Why? Is this different from? Oh no, okay, I see. Okay, I know. Yeah, I remember what's going on. So in my version of this renderer class, it's not storing these things as members, and so I need to pass them as parameters. I didn't like the pattern of having members that were set at the beginning of the frame, and then I don't know, the just a weird lifetime. Post image effects, pre-image effects. Go. Yeah, so I've got what was I using for that project? I might have just been using one of those like TS100 like pencil soldering irons. Probably not as beefy as it could be. The way I draw UI as well is wrong. I just couldn't get the right way to work. Yeah, the way I do compositing it in of my game might also not work well with the draw gizmos before effects thing. I wonder what exactly it draws in there. And I noticed earlier that my tracer pixel hold on. This is unrelated. I've got this concept of a tracer pixel that lets me trace the casting of one ray into the scene and its children. And I noticed that we're always rendering that pixel red even when the feature's turned off. Yeah. Don't want that. I'll think about that later. I don't want it to be on by default anyway. Yeah, this is a thing there. Yeah, there was just a massive grounding plate as well as part of the, I think it's the video unit. Is this running? Will this run? Let's see. Yeah, well, we've got widgets rendering. What happens if we enable depth of field? Well, the widgets are still fine. Oh, sorry. There we go. So the widgets are fine, rendering on top of all that. All right. Custom drawing. So this is just how to do a post effect at all. So by rendering a full screen triangle with a custom shader, alright, so this is something I'm not doing currently. So in order to render that full screen triangle, you need a material. I've been manually creating materials for each of the Postfx shaders I've got. But in this tutorial, what the author is doing is instead creating a material at runtime. Materials are normally assets that are saved to the project, but there's some special initialization that means that it's created at runtime and not saved. It's a runtime only thing. So in my Postfx settings, I'm going to create fields like this. Or for the different shaders, and let's say, for the sake of argument, depth of field, shade. Actually, it should be Kawase Blur shader. It's going to be our shader. The depth of the field pass just reuses that shader a few times. So we go to Unity, assign the shader that already exists. Wait, is one Postfx settings corresponding to one? I want to get an idea of where we're working towards. So this is part of the constructor for the stack. Different types of blur, yeah. New shader pass, enum entry, okay. So we're not creating a pass per, we're not creating a class per pass here. We are ending up with all of the Postfx inside one class. Where does copy get used here? Draw, pass copy. Are we making multiple passes within one shader, I wonder? Oh. Oh, and then we've got Postfx stack passes.hlsl. Seems shady, yes. I don't know that I like this way of organizing things. Not that I'm necessarily know better. Right, give me a few minutes and I will be back shortly. All right. Yeah, let's have another quick scroll through this, but I might just do my own thing. All right. So what do I want to implement? Oh, JoviX, thanks for the follow. I'd like something where I can do a bit of rearranging of, you know, the effects stack, but also have, like, I don't want all of the code to live in the same class. The code for creating the material from the shader seems worth implementing. Where did that live? All right. So at the moment, I think, where do I put all my shaders? So they're in the render pipeline settings. So where we've got, for example, post-proc matte, lighting blur matte, that we want to change those to a shader and then use that code from earlier. So non-serialized for this first material, and then post material. Okay, this is the property name. I don't want to do it that way. I want to say wait. Yeah, maybe that's not bad actually. So private material, post-proc matte, system.serializable. Is it serializable? Public shader, post-proc shader. So we've got, why is this not valid on this declaration type? Serialized field is the annotation. And then a corresponding property Don't like the idea of duplicating this for every single one of my shaders. And also this is only going to be accessed in one place, so I'd prefer doing it with we'll have a method create runtime material. If shader is not null, new material from the shader. So all we do here is create it from Postfx shader. I need to clarify some of my buffer and shader names as well. There's something that just called like, oh, post-processing material or camera buffer that is ambiguous. I think this one is specifically the downscaling material. Can I do better than this? C# conditional null conditional assign. It's turns the value of the left hand operand if it's not null, otherwise, yeah. There. So now, in one statement I can say this, initialize it with this method if it's not been created yet, and then return it. And now that I've done that, I'm not going to actually use this, I'm just going to directly go in to the code that uses postprocmat and do it inline. I don't know if these are good practices for C#. I'm just doing things this way. Yeah, okay, I guess no, does make the code nicer, I suppose. Okay, let's do it that way. So for now we were looking at this asset, yeah. So this is what we need for each of the shader passes. And now make sure the rendering code inaccessible due to protection level. Public material. So in Unity, reloading script assemblies. See, this step didn't used to take this long. Just kind of stuck on that. The window's unresponsive. I already did the one thing that I saw suggested, which was I put third-party code into a separate assembly by putting it in a folder called standard assets. That was it. I don't even have that much code. It, like, last I checked it was something like 4,000 lines of non-comment code. Okay, what was my shader even called? Wait, hold on. What pass is this part of? Downscale pass. So super sampling, that's the one. That's what I called it. Error during render. Some resources. No, this value cannot be null. value cannot be null. It's running. Okay, it's fine. Sometimes you just have to let it refresh some of the render pipeline state. Some stuff gets cached. So what we've done is remove the need for the Postfx for the downscale material. Okay, here's a audio track with too much vocals, so I will just make a note of that and remove it from playlist. There we go. Alright, so now I'm going to find in my project, what is it called? Super sampling, nope, downscale, nope. Where did that material even go? It was super sample, no? Where? Right, it's the one called final bit for some reason, even though that's not, yeah. It's not what the pass is called anymore. Okay, so we should still be running fine. How is Unity finding, like, what is it doing for 30 seconds to a minute when I hit play that it wasn't doing before? Everything's on SSD. It's not particularly taxing my CPU or GPU during this time. It's just not responding for a minute. Kind of annoying. Seriously, what is it doing? Looks like it gets a bit longer every time. Okay. So we're still running fine, so that material isn't being used anymore. So let's do that for the other materials that are in here. So I'm going to move create runtime material above, well, below, I guess, below. And then do one of these for each. I wonder if there's a shorthand. Is there any more shorthanded way of expressing that? C#, property, shorthand. Yes. All right. Not too bad. So next, lighting, blur, and lighting. Huh. I think we don't use lighting blur matte at the moment. Yeah. Kawase blur matte. Let's bring that up. Kawase blur shader. Kawase blur matte. Used in 2 places. Oh no, just 1 because I've extracted the Kawase blur pass to its own function already. In Unity, delete the Kawase blur material here. In these settings, Kawase blur. So I'm doing this now, and then as a later step I will bring these shaders into the Postfx class, the Postfx settings. I'll check that each of these are actually being used. That one is. In composite. Used twice. Interesting. Or once for the blur pass. Final step. Right, so the way I've got my own code structured, I'm setting an ignore mask on some of the shaders where I can say for some parts of the screen I don't want to actually do the Postfx. Or I want to hold out a section or only hold in a certain section. And that should be part of the this function, for instance, like I would want this to be Some of these should be configurable on a settings object of some kind. Well, let's continue the cleanup for now. Alpha composite. That's used for the... So I'm working towards having the UI as part of... Sorry. Having my overlay as part of the application instead of as part of OBS, in the general move away from doing things in OBS and doing as much as possible in Engine. In particular, did I disable this completely somehow? Okay, well, it's not working in Unity right now, but there are issues with the way it's compositing the UI layer into the rest of what's rendered, and since I've not solved those, it looks quite bad with the thin lines that I've got in the overlay. I've got it turned off for now. And also it was rendering within the editor scene when it shouldn't be. So just not quite usable at the moment. I'm leaving those problems are not terribly interesting to solve. Just annoying. I can keep using the overlay in OBS for now, so I'm not prioritizing those at the moment. Alright, but yes, these remaining materials are in use. At least I don't want to break them. It bothers me that I'm creating repeated fields for every material, but I don't have a better solution right now, because I care about how these are serialized inside the asset, and so I can't just I don't think I can just make them a struct. For instance, an array of structs or something. I can experiment with that later. So the next one is lighting multiplication, screen space lighting. Game composite. So what I do is, in order to have the gameplay, captured gameplay visible in engine after all of, unaffected by all of the effects, I composite it in after doing all of the blurs and lighting and so on. Only on the pixels where that's correct. No. Did not recompile? Just fixing the accesses to the material. Masked composite. And delete another couple of materials from here. Gaussian blur is not being used. And this one actually I do want a material for it. Where does the UI one live? UI composite. So that's the last one. Deleting it first. Place lighting mult with call it UI composite here. What have I done? 2 eyes. UI. That's it. Remove the old one. No, that was bad. I somehow replaced it throughout the whole document. Try again. Selection, right? Yeah. UI composite, and now find uses of alpha composite matte and place with the property access. Back to Unity. Nothing complaining. Make sure that you can do lighting, depth of field. That's, yeah, seems to be working more or less. Doing a quick commit. Yeah, I have to engage my brain now. I can't believe the stream has gone on this long and I've barely done anything, but then I'm not at 100% power level today. What am I doing? I'm looking at our passes. So in the code in the tutorial, we're looking at a single render call, single input and destination for all of the Postfx. It's always tough deciding when you're going from something hard-coded to something configurable. Deciding how to do that exactly. Let's look at the dependencies of my existing effects. So the simplest is the blur. It does ask for the source and destination sizes of the render targets and the identifiers for the render card targets themselves. and then a mask for where to not apply the effect, and a kernel size for the blur. So it allocates its own internal temporary targets for the blur passes and then releases them at the end. Seems like a good candidate for... I don't need this anymore. Candidate for extracting into a class. I don't know. I just want all of these classes to end up in different source files, really, to make the renderer clearer. And I don't want them to end up in Postfx stack either. I want them to end up in let's just say I want a Postfx interface which will be what? So the immediate thing that I wonder about is different ones of these passes have different inputs. Potentially an example of one that requires more than one input is the lighting, is the screen space lighting, and that takes two different inputs, the existing image and the game input, and then it does some it multiplies the color values. So I might have an interface where you can set up a number of parameters for it, and then the actual render call afterwards. So some kind of void setup. And then render. So we wouldn't set up the source here. Let's get the right imports in. A generic parameter setting API also is the sort of thing that can grow unbounded. What's it going to look like from the end user's point of view? From the end user, i.e. me, from my point of view, what I want to have, I'm not going to end up with a full, you know, node-based editor. I just want a list of effects. In the editor, I could reorder them and change their parameters. So each of those passes an instance of the pass that's configured in the scene. I could either make a scriptable object, so a settings object that would get saved to the assets, or I could make a mono behavior that gets saved in the scene. All of the setup doesn't need to be part of the interface, question mark. The parameters don't need to be. How am I going to represent inputs? For instance, when I say that the screen space lighting pass has two inputs, one of which is, let's call it the current camera buffer that we're going to modify, and then there's the lighting, and the lighting is going to be some other render texture that is updated by a separate pass. So I definitely have passes that apply to things that aren't the camera immediately, because I blur the game texture, the game input, the game capture, blur it and output that to a separate render texture. which itself might not be the same resolution as the screen and so on. A lot of my render textures are allocated on the fly. You can also create render texture assets. I've limited the number of those that I've got going on because I don't know, it seems weird to have it as an asset in Unity. I could refer to the render textures by name when editing my passes. And internally map that to either a temporary or an asset render texture. In fact, it could be an enumeration. I don't think I can have a field in the editor that's either that's one of two possible types in a straightforward way. But I could have for a given input or for the output two different fields, one of which is an enum of all of the available little kind of known temporary passes, temporary render targets, and a separate field that is for a render texture. And then based on whether the render texture is populated or not, or possibly depending on the value of the enum, I could decide which one actually takes precedence. I'm out of tea again. I'm back in however long it takes my kettle to boil. Thank you for sticking around. Interesting. I ended up chewing down on my tea bag as I was downing the last few drops of the previous cup. That was not fun. Okay, this track has too much in terms of vocals for me to use as part of my usual playlist, so noting that down, removing it, skipping, go. So I had a thought that, well, firstly, what I really want to do is some kind of a polymorphic handling of a polymorphic list of settings, right? But also the existing HDRP Postfx, I think already solved this somehow. So I'm going to open up, let's see, one really nice thing about Unity is the graphics. Where this is not in my recent files. Just a moment. Well, it's because I opened it as a folder. So a lot of the graphics code is open source, and so we can take a look at how things are implemented. So in particular, I want to see in the post-processing how it all works. I don't like when there's this vocabulary ambiguity in class names and so on. This drawer makes me think of, you know, a drawer in a cabinet, but it means the thing that draws in this case. New tea still too hot. Full screen, custom pass, initialize, serialized property. Serialized property? Serialized property. What is a serialized property in Unity? Classes for editing properties on objects in a completely generic way automatically handles undo, multi-object editing, and prefab overrides. Let me bring that up in Chrome so you can see it as well. iterate through the properties of an object. Okay, so how is that used here? So custom pass is what? Where's that defined? What are we passing in? Initialize, custom pass drawer, type of, custom pass drawer, attribute type. Be a bit more involved than I want to get, really. Okay, well, there are clearly ways to do the sort of thing I'm thinking of, but at the same time, I cannot engage my brain enough to do that right now. What does that mean? Well, my aim is to pull that code out of the renderer and into individual classes. My brain is just not firing right now. Nope. Nope, I'm gonna give up. I think my neurons are simply not firing anymore. I blame being ill. I think I should continue to extract code. I'll probably just pull all of the Postfx code into the Postfx stack class. First of all, getting it out of the main renderer, and I'll worry about the further breakdown and making it something accessible through the editor when I can look at that code from the HDRP and actually grasp all of it, because right now just brain is not working. Alright, let's get something shiny on screen while I'm here as I chat. Everything's still running, at least. We didn't break anything. Let's see. Yeah. I can do a two of me have be doing the outro. I wonder if this button still works. There we go. Credits time. What do we have coming up? On Friday, I'll be doing Futuristic Racing Friday. I finally got my PSP, my PlayStation TV set up with the versions of Wipeout Pure and Wipeout Pulse with DLC. I have Wipeout Fusion running on my actual PS2. So as long as the capture works for those, then we should be able to redo those particular game rankings that had problems in emulator before. So that, since that's what's ready, that's what I might do, unless I decide to do just one or two of them and then throw in a new game. That's also a possibility. Don't know yet, but it is tempting to just do the wipeouts and have those done. That said, it is Tanji's anniversary, stream anniversary, and she is still live, so let's go say hi to Tanji. Thank you, Barbadino. I feel like it was a bit of a extra chilled out stream, perhaps. Didn't get a huge amount done, but I got some thoughts out. I showed a few of my shaders, so it's not all bad. Let's see. Going to my own channel. Setting up a raid. We are. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. It's time for me to go. If you, like me, have caught the Millennium Bug, make sure to watch the next stream or find me elsewhere on the World Wide Web by clicking on the links below the video. I've been Millennium Cyborg, keep that future vibe, and I'll see you in the world of tomorrow.